The sixth special session of the Minay 38 na Legislature in Guam is called to order. Majority Whip Senator Calvo, you are recognized, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, notwithstanding the House rules, I move to adopt today's sixth special session agenda dated April 11, 2026.
A motion was made to adopt today's sixth special agenda dated April 11, 2026. Are there any objections? Hearing and seeing no objection, motion carries. Senator Calvo, you are recognized, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I move to waive special session agenda items 2 through 6.
A motion was made to waive special session agenda items 2 through 6. Are there any objections? Hearing and seeing no objections, motion carries. Madam Clerk, roll call.
Vice Speaker Atta. Senator Barnett. Speaker Blas.
Here.
Senator Borja. Senator Calvo. Senator Duenas. Senator Gumatautau. Senator Lujan. Senator Munya Barnes. Senator Parkinson. Senator Perez. Senator Salas Matanani. Senator San Augustine. Senator Taitagui. Senator Terlahi. Mr. Speaker, there is a quorum.
Si Jus Mosse, Madam Clerk. Majority Whip Senator Calvo, you're still recognized, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I move to waive special session agenda items 8 and 9.
A motion was made to waive special session agenda items 8 through 9. Are there any objections? Hearing and seeing no objections, motion carries. Majority Whip Senator Calvo, you're still recognized, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I would like to advise the members of the messages from E. Magahagan Guahan specific to the call to special session and move that the messages from E. Magahagan Guahan be appended to today's special session journal.
On the motion that messages from E. Magahagan Guahan be appended to today's special session journal, are there any objections? Hearing and seeing no objection, motion carries. Majority Whip Senator Calvo, ma'am, you're still recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I move to waive special session agenda items 11 and 12.
On the motion to waive special session agenda items 11 and 12, are there any objections? Hearing and seeing no objection, motion carries. Majority Whip Senator Senator Calvo, you are still recognized. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I move that the bill introduced, Bill number 16-S, be deemed to have been given its first reading.
On the motion, are there any objections? Hearing and seeing no objections, motion carries. Majority Whip Senator Calvo, you are still recognized, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I move to excuse senators not present for today's special session.
On the motion, are there any objections? Hearing and seeing no objection, motion carries. Vice Speaker Tony Yap, sir, you recognize, sir?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I move to place Bill 16-S onto the second reading file, introduced by the Committee on Rules by request of Imagahagan Guahan, the Governor of Guam, in accordance with the Organic Act of Guam, an act to appropriate $25 million from the general fund to Imagahagan Guahan for emergency response expenses in response to tropical storms in Laku.
On the motion, are there any objections? Hearing, seeing no objection, motion carries. Vice Speaker, you still recognize, sir?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Per our standing rules, 6.04.D3, Bill 16-S contains an appropriation. Therefore, as we resolve into the Committee of the Whole, with Senator Duenas chairing the Committee of the Whole, we invite the following panel guests, which will include Mr. Lester Carlson from BBMR.
On the motion, are there any objections? Hearing and seeing no objections, motion carries. We are in recess. Resolved to the Committee Hall. We're in recess.
Committee of the Whole is called to order. Colleagues, materials for the Committee of the Whole are in the shared session drive Google folder labeled 4.11.26 Committee of the Whole. Rules of engagement. We have Bill number 16S. There will be 2 rounds. Round 1 will be discussion and questions, 5 minutes. In the first round, each senator is allotted 5 minutes, excluding responses, for discussion and questions to the panel. A reminder, you can only yield your time to one member, and that member will receive all of your time. After completing round 1 of the questions on the bill, panelists will be dismissed. Round 2 will be for amendments and final comments. That will be for 5 minutes as well. Proposed amendments must be submitted in writing to the clerk by email to session@guamlegislature.gov and must be submitted before the second round begins. We will proceed with the amendments in order received. Any replacement is considered a new submission. Amendments not submitted in writing to the clerk and uploaded to the Google Drive folder before the start of the second round will be ruled out of order. After we finish the amendments or final comments of the bill, I will allow the sponsor of the bill to close, which basically will probably be a closing from the Vice Speaker, and entertaining the motion of the Committee of the Whole to rise. Thank you for your cooperation. So as we begin, before we do, of course, which is customary, we have BBMR Director Lester Carlson with us, and we'll have the Sergeant-at-Arms to swear him in.
Under penalty of perjury, do you affirm that any and all information you provide today, whether it be verbally, electronically, and in writing, be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Mr. Chair is under oath. You may proceed.
Jesus Masi. Speaker Blas, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Carlson, thank you for being here today. Can you please explain basically what this, an act to appropriate $25 million for emergency response expenses? First of all, how did we get to 25? Why $25 million?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. For the public's information, and in case anybody in the body is not aware, we're currently now in a typhoon watch. This storm, even though the bill calls it tropical storm Sinlaku, it will be a typhoon very, very soon. The tracking, I'm no Al Roker, or Barbara White for that matter, but this storm has been concerning because of its lack of forward movement. It's continued, right now it's stationary, and I don't like stationary. It's just building up intensity, and it's forecast to come directly over Guam. So in an effort to be as best prepared as possible, this measure is before you. To be able to really put our best foot forward in trying to do typhoon preparation work. The executive order that the governor provided yesterday is customarily funded with $250,000. We funded that already. There's a rack established up at Homeland Security. All the folks that are required to be up there during times of disaster are up there. The next typhoon briefing will be at 4 o'clock today. But for all intents and purposes, this looks like an extremely serious event that is, even if it wiggles a little bit left or right, it's not going to make much difference. And we would like to have more resources to put available to cut purchase orders to do stuff. $250,000 doesn't get you much backhoe rental when you're down in the Barcenas area in Maritzo clearing that drainage that always seems to flood every time that there's a bad storm, or any number of places on Guam. It's basically a good start, but we have 7 schools that are already identified for shelter. We've done pretty much everything that we can do to be able to prepare, but instead of coming after the storm and asking you for funding, we're coming to you before. What we pray is not a major event, but we're prepping as if it is going to be a major event and asking for your assistance to be able to respond both proactively and during recovery to this typhoon. And as far as the amount, the CRER that we transmitted for the month of February, bottom line is on page 3, we're $48.1 million ahead of where we would be if every month that we calculated revenue collections at during the 12-month revenue report that we submit to the body on the 15th of every year of October. So we're $48 million gross ahead, but when you net out $852,000 in the Guam Highway Highway Fund shortfall, and I would be remiss if I didn't remind the public that this body continues to support everybody on Guam. The gas tax relief is still in effect. Gas prices have been going up, 20 cents, 20 cents, 20 cents, down 20 cents. But this body passed a measure to keep the liquid fuel tax funded and giving everybody kind of a little bit of a holiday. And that's still in effect. If it wasn't, gas would be 19 cents a gallon higher. So this body has continued to recognize the benefit to the people of Guam by keeping the gas tax relief in place. But it's still a very difficult situation where gas was $4.67, and then it went up to, I think, $6.42 before it went back down 20 cents to $6.22. A lot of people spend a lot of money on gas, and it's becoming a very real hardship. We did have a problem with the collection of property taxes that has since been resolved, but in the CRER that we provided to you on March 20th, we netted out pretty much the entirety of the first installment for property taxes of $21.9 million. The problem has been resolved. As a matter of fact, I got my property taxes like a couple of weeks ago, and I made the payment Wednesday. So the inability to pay property taxes is why you see this number there. It's not because people aren't paying. There was, as everyone in here knows, there was an issue that has since been resolved. And I believe that this number, 21.974626, which represents almost the entirety of the first installment of property tax payments, is going to be significantly whittled away in the coming months. And you'll see that number drop significantly in the coming reports now that people can pay property tax. And then a nominal amount for Tourist Attraction Fund of $27,000. And finally, a Healthy Future Fund shortfall of $420,000. So when you net that out, that's $23 million. We come up with a net unobligated amount in the general fund of $24.995412. So, sir, that's where the $25 million comes from.
Okay, and appreciate that. Your title, the title of the bill says that it's for emergency response expenses in response to the storm. Yet in the body, it includes emergency response and recovery expenses. Two different actions.
True. If this measure passed today and we were able to effectuate at the rack, set up the account. We could actually pull money, and you would be funding pre-storm landing expenses. So if we act positively, we can do both proactive and response.
That's still a response, and I appreciate that. But if you go further down in line 9, it says individual assistance is authorized under in this section supported by survey and damage assessment data. So you can't do anything until there's damage. So my question is, of the 25 mil, how much is for emergency response and how much is for recovery?
You know, we will probably have a better idea of how much the response costs are going to be after the storm. I really don't know what that would be, but I think we're erring on the side of caution and asking for the body's consideration to be able to have lots of tools to be able to, get the island back after the storm. I'm aware of Red Cross people that are already on the ground. I'm aware of high-ranking people from FEMA that are already here. There are people that took notice of this storm and its potential impact and are already here. So I really do hope for the best, but sir, we're here and trying to plan, unfortunately, for what might be something less than optimal.
I appreciate it. Unless you're really speaking to the choir when it comes to emergency response and recovery, two different areas. But that's why I need to peg down the $25 million. How much do you anticipate to use for emergency response? Because you've already got just in the body of the bill, you've already started to identify individual assistance. How much did you intend to be able to put in that area? And recovery expenses are for damages, and that needs an assessment. So again, I would feel much comfortable knowing, first off, $25 million. How much do you need that? How much do you need of that to respond to this disaster? To get this island ready as best the government can to address battening down the hatches, okay, to respond to this disaster. Recovery is another portion because, again, that doesn't happen until after the disaster, if the disaster were to hit. So, again, the question is, how much is the administration going to separate out between what they need for emergency response and what they want to set aside for recovery?
Sir, I wish I could give you a definitive answer. The severity of the storm will dictate how much of these resources that the body ends up authorizing goes to that recovery response. And then similarly, what type of individual assistance is identified as being immediately necessary to address. I can't tell you that we need $10 million to be able to respond and to provide for all of these things from line 6 all the way down to line 10. I wish I could, but I can't sit here before you and give you a number. We're here to ask for the body's consideration in funding what we believe are going to be necessary costs that will be incurred. And we will be reporting, you'll see that even with the funds that go to the mayors, there's a 45-day reporting period, and then the entire report, we're supposed to give you guys something in 60 days. So we're even giving you pretty tight timelines for reporting on what we did and did not spend.
I can appreciate that, and again, let's go back to, let's go to Mawar. How much, I know that there were assessments done, there needed to have been assessments done. Do you have any idea as to what the response cost was for Mawar? That should have been done already. It had to have been done. That's the only way you get individual assistance if you clear that off.
I believe we spent somewhere in the neighborhood of $70 million for Mawar. $50 million was authorized by this body, and we set aside about $45 million in cash for a FEMA recovery fund. But then some of the response costs that we had were not FEMA eligible, so we couldn't get reimbursed for that. And that was a significant amount of money.
Okay, the $70 million and everything, that was post. That was, okay? I'm very aware of what that money, what was the cost, government cost to respond to Mawar? Prior to Mawar hitting, what was that cost? That cost had to have been...
It's right now, the only thing that we have is $250,000. So anything that exceeds that, it is not funded. This weekend's activities will probably cost $1 million.
Okay, well, and you know, Mr. Carlson, the reason why I asked this question is first off, when I'm looking at $25 million for response expenses, and then I see that we're going to have recovery expenses along with this. This is two separate items, okay? Two separate activities. First one's first. We got to respond accordingly. But I don't think $25 million is going to be, okay, up to $25 million is necessary for that. And I just wanted to know what was that figure. Take into consideration, in the next line down, you say you're going to give $100,000 to each mayor. And I'm assuming that $100,000 is going to go to each mayor prior to the storm. Is that correct?
If this bill passes, we'll do our best, sir, to get the monies over to the mayors as soon as possible.
Well, was that the intent?
The intent was to try to get before this body and try to get ahead of the storm and provide resources for people. And to your point, both response and recovery.
Well, and again, I'm looking at, I'm just trying to find a way to be able to, to separate, you need to be able to separate these two out. And, you know, it was the administration that came with a $25 million ask. I'm just wondering what if the administration has a breakdown. My time is up, Mr. Chair, so we should have a little bit more time, but
I don't have a breakout, sir.
thank you. Thank you, sir.
Senator Gumatato, you're recognized.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair, and thanks, Lester, for being with us this afternoon. I know that you and the rest of the cabinet have been in briefings since the start of the week this week, and I know that much of it ramped up on Thursday. Can you, just as we're seeing this bill in front of us, and based on the briefings, can you share with the body what is the operational status of the E911 system, GFD, GPD radio networks, backup power at the shelters and at the EOC? Because, you know, there's known vulnerabilities requiring significant emergency procurement before the onset of damaging winds on Monday morning. Is that what's pushing maybe some of the 25 mil? Is there some really big issues communication-wise?
I'm not sure that we have any communication issues right now, Senator. We are in the process of improving the communication systems and adding more LMR radios, but that's a procurement that's in process. But when I attended a public safety meeting Thursday afternoon, and the communication amongst all public safety agencies and their ability to communicate was not voiced as being problematic whatsoever. When we had the first briefing yesterday as a cabinet, there were no public safety individuals that voiced any concerns with the ability to receive and respond to 911 calls. There was nothing that was said that leads me to believe that we have an ambulance shortage in the face of this emergency. Nothing was brought to my attention aside from the $250,000 to try to see if we could accelerate a procurement or at least a rental to be able to meet a need. So there's nothing that has been put on my radar.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned the rental. I mean, I think as I wasn't here during Mawar, but being familiar with the process, that purchasing is it's definitely out. It's not considered. Most of everything will either be rented, leased, or the like, and at least there's that acknowledgement. But at least it's in terms of a communications, I guess. From readiness, it sounds like things are not bubbling up where you will need to procure any additional or any, whether it be rental of radios or the like. Is what you're saying today?
Yeah, I think we're going to be fine. I mean, I'm not promoting any particular company, but I couldn't help but notice there was a part of Tejan that was cleared right at the intersection of Route 10, 8, and 16. And there was a whole bunch of heavy equipment that was out there, and I would imagine it's being shown and it's available for rental. So we, you know, it's not like there's not heavy equipment that is not available, but to your point, that is the way to go. We certainly don't purchase stuff for recovery, we rent.
Yeah, and I mean, I was thinking only the response side, the recovery. I think I kind of share the sentiments of the speaker. I mean, we don't know. It's a very dangerous storm, and you're very correct. We just don't know what will happen. So planning on a recovery side is really a shot in the dark. Can I just go back to you mentioned some of the numbers from the general fund. You're talking about the balance. I think you mentioned 24.9 million. It's the same as a general fund, or it's almost similar to this appropriation. After the bill passes, if it passes of this body, what is the realistic general fund cushion for the rest of the fiscal year, and what is the contingency plan if emergency costs exceed the projections?
I fully believe, sir, that the Guam Educational Facilities Fund shortfall of $21.9 million will be basically addressed in a positive manner. Again, the inability for anybody to make property tax payments. I mean, I heard stories watching you guys. Somebody goes up to Treasurer Guam to pay their property tax. They would accept the payment. And I mean, without the coupon or receipt, right? You know, sorry. So the inability is no longer a problem. So I have full faith that the people of Guam understood that they couldn't pay their property taxes. Now they have the invoices and they can run down to Treasurer Guam. So I really think that number, if it wasn't there, sir, then you would have, let's just say, $15 million, right? So that would bring the available funds from 24 to $40 million. So that amount, I fully expect that we're going to receive it. It was just problematic at the time.
Okay, I know you're in the conversations with them, but have federal resources through FEMA or any other agency, has it been formally requested? And are you guys in advance of your Stafford Act application to the president?
I believe that letter is being drafted or already drafted for the governor's signature. I think, the asking for the declaration of emergency, I mean, if I remember correctly, you have to have really, like after the typhoon, and you look around and, oh, yeah, it's but if it was a banana typhoon, right, you don't want to send it ahead of it. So I think basically it's ready to be sent as soon as, there is actually a reason to. And I do feel something, I don't know, to me it's a little strange, but in a good way, that Red Cross and FEMA are already here. Normally they're out, after, not before.
Right, and when I saw the original bill, I thought, and I've always thought, like, okay, if it's 25 million, are we asking for an advance for the Stafford Act? You're anticipating $100 million in total costs for the response and recovery, and I appreciated the clarification today in terms of the planning effort. As you mentioned, it was trying to get ahead. The 250,000, I don't think is evaporated that fast. I think that we're still kind of not into core 2 yet. I know the anticipation is maybe tomorrow, but at some point that money will get really quickly eaten up by response. I wanted to ask about the mayors, if I could. I know the mayors, the bill directs 100,000 to each of them. They do have 10 million in available funds in their own account. What specific items are you hearing that the mayors are going to procure that are not already being approved through the GSA, and how will the coordination with GFD, GPD, and Civil Defense during this response phase? I know that in the last storm there was a lot of criticism about that engagement with the Mayor's Council, so I just want to get your take on any idea what they're going to be procuring.
We're always very grateful for our municipal frontline people in the mayor's and the mayor's staff. My mayor in Manila is a really, really good guy, so is the vice mayor, and I would not want their job. They're going to be, after 911, they're going to be the ones that the residents call for assistance. They're the ones that's going to be called, how do I get this green waste removed? I don't have a truck. They're the ones that are going to have to deal with trash. They're the ones that are going to have to deal with, I lost my roof. I don't have anything, at least cases of water to distribute. They need to have those types of resources because the police will come if there's an incident that requires them. The fire department will be there if somebody was injured. But if you're in that gray area, then you go to the mayor. And our mayors are just really, really good, hardworking people, and they need the resources to take care of responses of food, water, anything else. I mean, if we have a prolonged power outage or there's damaged lines, whether or not there's going to be food that's made available, normally it's made available to the mayor's office. So, there's just a whole number of things. I mean, even I recall the distribution of food after Mawar was at the mayor's office. So.
Okay, I only have one more question, Lester. From the $45.4 million in Mawar recovery funds that were authorized by Public Law 37-47, approximately $31.2 million remains unspent. I think you mentioned it a bit earlier, as of September 30, 2024. Can you confirm for the record the total amount in local funds that were spent for Typhoon Mawar after factoring in the FEMA reimbursements?
this body provided the ability for, because FEMA, remember, you have to spend the money. First of all, you have to have an identified claim, and then they have to come out and they have to ascertain the claim, then they put a dollar number on it. But we have to front the money, and we have to then show FEMA afterwards that I did everything you said I should do with the money that you identified as eligible for reimbursement. So there's a checklist of what it was and a dollar amount. And if you deviate from that checklist, and if you don't submit the paperwork to get the reimbursement, then yeah, your damage got repaired, but we never saw the reimbursement. We're still working on Typhoon Dolphin, So I don't recall anything of significance, like in the millions, that we have received from FEMA as far as reimbursements. I know there's been money that was spent, but that money that comes back is supposed to go back into the general fund. So I cannot sit here and tell you, there was $43 million deposited out of the 50 that was authorized, and we've received 10. I wish I could, but I can't.
No, and I during the charter school public hearing yesterday, that was mentioned for one of the charter schools that they were still waiting for a reimbursement, and I am for certain that the mayor of Barrigada and their FEMA projects, they're still kind of waiting. And I think that's just, again, these the recovery efforts just have taken so long. And I'll agree, yeah, Typhoon Dolphin is still out there as well. Well, Mr. Chair, that's all my questions. Thanks, Lester, appreciate it.
Senator Gumatauta. Senator Burnett, you're recognized.
Sidus Masi, Mr. Chair, and buenas to the people of Guam. Just want to take a moment to thank all of our hardworking government of Guam employees from the legislature here on out across all the line agencies, as well as all of our partners in the private sector as we sit here today in Committee of the Whole. The island is moving quickly to prepare for what looks like is going to be some bad news for our island and our region. So, Undankuluna Sidus Masi. Going out to everyone who's out there preparing for the storm. And thank you again, Mr. Carlson, for being here today. I guess I just would first like to ask, if we didn't pass this bill, what would happen to preparations being made for Tropical Storm Sinlaku?
The work up at the Homeland Security Office, Emergency Operations Center, would continue. We would prepare all of our responses as best we could. I really think that if there wasn't additional funding provided and keyed in and purchase orders for additional heavy equipment to take into account known areas of concern, I'm going to say it again for the 14th, and I'll say it all day because it's probably the one that resonates with everybody, is that flooding in Mauricio, the Barcinas area. If we can get ahead of removing the debris in that drainage area before the storm, that's just like one project, right? So you've got a bunch of people working on one project to try to ensure that storm water is diverted properly, doesn't start flooding and doesn't back up. There are numerous amounts of similar types of areas of concern throughout the island. The better equipped we are proactively to do things while we can before the storm hits, the better off, and the less damage that the ensuing flooding and things of that nature will compound. So. It's not that we're going to stop. We might run into issues where the response could have been mitigated, but wasn't because the funding wasn't there. If we had the opportunity, we're just trying to get ahead of this. It's like lessons learned. We think we need a little bit more funding for the preparation And we, if we have the body's blessing for additional funding for recovery, that would also facilitate recovery.
Thank you for that. Do you anticipate any of this funding on the recovery side? And I'm just wondering about the necessity of it, given that, when you kind of research a little bit about FEMA and some of these disaster emergency declarations coming out of the nation's capital, there have been significant delays, denials, and even just outright rejections in a lot of cases. And many speculate that it's got a lot to do with, whether or not you have a Democrat or a Republican governor. Have you guys, anticipated any of this in drafting your letter to President Trump?
No, I'll tell you though, I'm glad you brought that up because we're all familiar with the issues up at Homeland Security and the grants that were frozen and all those issues that I've still been they're unresolved. One of the issues that I have is that we got into this recovery, I think it's called a recovery plan because of the audit, right? And then when the president was elected, there was this federal early retirement program. All the people that we were dealing with the corrective action plan, that's what it was, from FEMA, they all took the early out. So there was this massive exodus of all the people that we were corresponding with on the corrective action plan. So that set us back. It's only being, I think it's going to be addressed later this month or in May, where we're going to pick it back up again. But that corrective action plan has been on pause. That's the corrective action plan. That's not the reimbursements. That's not all the other FEMA work. So, it's got some hiccups.
Thank you. Are you able to explain to the people of Guam who may be watching today why it is that a few weeks ago we had, I believe in another committee of the whole, asked you about funding for power credits, and I think your response at the time was we didn't have the funds. So maybe can you explain to the people of Guam how we have this $25 million?
Can you repeat that again? Because the acoustics here.
Is it too acoustic?
Yeah.
Well, just maybe explain in maybe more layman's terms how we have this $25 million available, all of us sardines.
Okay, first of all, my memory, and I haven't been here in a while, so if I heard you correctly, you said I was here a few weeks ago, and I said there was no money.
I think it might have been Mr. Byrne. Dispensa, sorry. I think you were off island. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, if you know the answer, please.
What was the money for?
The power credits.
This number represents a report that was provided March 20th. The next CRER will come out April 20th. I don't recall off the top of my head what it was for January, but if I'm not mistaken, it's somewhere in the neighborhood of $30 million for one round of power credits. And as you can see, we don't have $30 million. So maybe what Mr. Byrne said was we don't have the funds sufficient enough for another round at $100.
Thank you. So you said that this weekend's activities are going to cost about $1 million?
Easy.
Easy? So, and I don't really have any more questions, but I wish you would make it a little more compelling, the argument for the need for this $25 million, because when I asked you what would happen if the bill didn't pass, you kind of said that things would continue to move forward. And I just struggle a little bit with the, granting the authority and ability when we hear from many agencies that lapses that we as a body move to protect through different amendments have been sucked up by the administration. And so I just wanted to put that on the record. But again, just finally, could you make it a little more compelling, the need for this $25 million? Because it just in the questions that you've answered today, I don't think we've gotten anywhere near that amount as of yet.
You know, $25 million is a number that we feel is available. If the number that the body was comfortable was 15, I wouldn't have any concern whatsoever that the amount was reduced, because we can always come back. What we're trying to do is be able to be proactive. And if you think that being proactive is a $15 million request, not the 25, I can see the logic in that. I'm not going to hold the line at 25. I'm basically here to be able to ask for more assistance prior to maybe having to come back again next week because of what it was that transpired. So I'm not necessarily hung up and adamant about 25. If the body feels that 15 and there was a limit on individual assistance, for example, I mean, I'm okay with that too.
Thank you. The $100,000 that the bill seeks to give each of the respective village mayors, how much of that do you think would be used to provide individual assistance in terms of, people who don't have the bottled water or the other necessities? Because as you know, people are struggling out here just paycheck to paycheck trying to make ends meet, and a lot of our people can't afford the emergency cost of an event like a typhoon, going out and having to buy additional butane, gas stove, bottled water, and all that stuff. So this $100,000 that you're looking to give to each of the mayors, would any of those funds be used, to your knowledge, for any type of individual assistance before Sinlaku makes landfall?
If we were able to get funding in their accounts, and if they were able to go and get purchase orders and hit the stores before we close, I mean, the time, it's kind of compressed for all that to actually happen before the storm, but certainly having the funding and then the purchase orders cut, and then you can go to wherever it is that's open and pick up whatever your villagers are in need of, or what the people that were affected adversely are seeking. I mean, I think, individual assistance in a first aid response type response is one thing at the mayor's level. What we do as an island for food distribution later would not be something that we would task with out of that mayor's money.
Thank you, Mr. Carlson, and thank you again to, Steve for being here. Just in paying attention to previous legislatures, I've seen a lot where, they have a storm and they come in after the fact. So I'm glad you're flexible on the upfront amount and are open to, maybe we do an after the storm assessment. I'm not even sure the will of the body on this measure, but I thank you for being here today. And Sitos Masi, Mr. Chair.
Senator Barnett. Senator Tulahi, you recognize.
Situs Masi. Thank you, Mr. Carlson, for being here, and for all of those who are out there working for all of us and our safety. And we're all praying for a miracle here so that we will be spared, or at least lives will be saved. I'm going to ask you a slew of quick questions, hopefully. Does anything in the bill, from what you can tell, prevent use of the funds to assist GDOE or the shelters?
I think the funding would include the 7 enhancements to the services at the 7 schools that have already been identified for shelters. Having a classroom for people to stay at is one thing. Having them there for any length of time requires resources because they have nowhere to go. If they they were in a substandard home, and that home was demolished, and where are you going to go? So traditionally, we have people staying at the schools for a while, then we go to a consolidated area for those that are
Yeah, it's just
desperate.
a technical question, whether, we don't want later on for somebody to say we have to take money from GDOE in order to take care of GDOE's, disaster. We want to, whatever happens to GDOE during the storm, we want to know whether this money, whether there's any impediment to the governor helping GDOE or the shelters with this money.
This will aid in that effort.
All right, and will it aid GWA and GPA as well, if necessary? For example, are they, just in case?
Depending on what it is that they need, there are, autonomous agencies, self-revenue generating, they operate systems where they're customers. To the extent that they need assistance from us, we'd have to weigh what that assistance is, but it's not necessarily assistance for any of those utility agencies.
All right. Are you aware whether GWA has stated whether the generators are ready at the pump stations?
I believe everybody's aware that whatever it is that you can do to make sure things are operational and backup systems, all of that was translated to everybody Wednesday of last week.
All right, but we don't have a status.
I don't have a status. I did sit in a meeting with John Beneventi, and he looked like he was rocking and rolling, ready to go. So these people know how to take care of storms and emergencies.
Well, we said that last time, and then we found out that the generator pumps were not in place, not working, and all of that. So
And some
that's
of
why
them
I'm
got
wondering
stolen,
if
too.
anyone followed up this time as to whether that's the case or not. You're not sure? All right. In the governor's executive order, she states that Guam Homeland and Office of Civil Defense are the lead agencies except for heavy equipment, and the DPW was the lead agency for construction, moving debris, road clearing, hazards, and heavy equipment. But the bill says that we're appropriating the money to the governor, not to any of those lead agencies. And should it say to the lead agencies instead, or to the RAC, as you say? Is it the RAC that's going to be determining who gets to use this money?
They're all under the executive branch. So,
Yes.
So.
But the executive order specifically
Yes, so
stated
with-
differently than the bill.
Yeah, but seeing as there are line agencies under the executive branch, it's under the umbrella, so I'm okay with it.
So is it the RAC that's going to determine, or is it the governor?
The RAC does not determine, the RAC facilitates. The RAC is a central operations area. The governor is still, none of these people are going to be
Okay.
in control.
All right, and the executive order covers 30 days and has these lead agencies. Should the bill as well cover 30 days and have them come back after, in advance of the ending of the 30 days with a post-recovery plan if necessary? In other words, we authorize the use of this money for 30 days post-typhoon, but can they come back with a plan after that, or is this going to go on indefinitely?
There's a provision for a report.
Yeah, just a report.
Yeah, but if you want a post event, yeah, sure.
A
I'm
plan
open
for
to
the
that.
use of the rest of the money?
Yeah.
All right, and then when we did the original 50 million appropriation for Mawar, it did include that individual assistance could be used, or it could be used for individual assistance. Was it used for individual assistance? Because the later version of the bill, when we amended it, or the law, took that provision out. So did they use that, or did they not need it?
I think the individual assistance, there were so many programs that was available. You had SBA out here.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, so,
So
I mean,
did we spend any money on individual assistance for Mawar?
other than immediate housing, sheltering, and food, no.
So we did use it for sheltering for some people?
Oh, yes, yes,
Yeah, that's what I want to know.
Yeah.
So you think it's necessary part of this bill?
yes, ma'am.
Because it was removed in the second version of the Mawar 50
Yeah,
million.
I think we're going to need sheltering.
All right, and then the last time, for Mawar, we authorized 50 million. This bill authorizes 25 million. That one authorized 50 million from existing appropriations. This is a 25 million appropriation from the general fund. Is any of the 50 million from Mawar still available? Because the last report that I could find was from October 2024 that says there's a balance of 31 million.
There is maybe $7 million, if I remember correctly, from that account. But remember, that's the account that we use to disperse once FEMA approves of a project, and then we allow people to tap that money so they didn't have to spend their own money. So if you were working at Customs and Quarantine, for example, you didn't use your budget, you used that money on the premise that you followed the FEMA reimbursement requirements to the T, and that any reimbursement went back to the general fund. I don't recall anything ever being returned to the general fund from FEMA.
So, not from FEMA, but so is this appropriation, is the balance still available?
There's a nominal
$31
amount.
million balance.
No, there's not 31 million.
October 24 report.
It's not, no. It's not that.
Then can you give us an updated report of what happened after October 2024, please?
Sure.
That should, yeah, absolutely have been, it's required, I'm sure, but the reports seem to have ended. All right, and then you said that we have 24.9 million available, but you didn't account for the 20 million that we're hoping is going to get to GMH and the 5 million that we're hoping was going to get to DOC from excess revenues. That's correct, right? So using this money now, if this is the only excess revenues that we receive for the rest of the fiscal year, we'll ensure that GMH does not get that 20 million. Is that correct?
The interpretation of the appropriation for GMH and DOC is audited.
Yes.
Yeah, so in other words, it's not available now because it's not audited.
Right.
We're not done.
But there is money would be available by the end of the fiscal year if we don't spend it.
If
But
we
this
don't
is
spend it.
almost the exact same amount that is needed for those two appropriations, GMH and DOC, right? For those two
It's close, yeah.
excess. And you said that the real property tax is going to look better than it does today. Right now, we're accounting for a loss. But the deadline for that payment is December. That's in the next fiscal year. So we won't be able to see that in this fiscal year, right?
The extension, because of the problems that we're having, was till December. I think that might become a little bit of an issue for people who can't pay. I got my bill, I paid it.
No, I'm talking about issue for the government of Guam if the payment comes in after the end of the fiscal year,
I don't
right?
believe people, because you're going to be going into next year by that time. So I have a feeling that people will take and be very prudent with what it is that they owe the government. They know that they have to pay your property taxes. Property taxes aren't that high. I'm
Yeah,
sure
that's
people will
speculation, but I'm just asking what right now they're provided not
Thank
to
you,
pay
Senator.
until
That's
the end
your
of this
time.
fiscal
Yeah.
year, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Senator. That's your time. You can answer the question, Lester.
I believe it will be okay, ma'am.
That's
Senator
not the
Perez,
question,
you're
Mr.
recognized.
Mr. Carlson.
Thank you. Senator Perez, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the question I have is in regards to the audit done by the public auditor. It stated that there was 2.8 million in questionable overtime costs, as well as other question costs in the federal spending. Would any of this money in this bill go towards paying those question costs?
Are you talking about prior costs for prior?
Yes, because the
No.
the legislature never
No.
appropriated any money to cover those question costs.
No.
And so none of this money is going to go towards the paying off question cost.
Question costs, the reason why they're in an audit is because they were paid. The cost was paid. So they're questioning how the validity of the payment. So it's not like it's an outstanding amount. But to answer your question, no. This is a proactive thing, ma'am. We're not doing anything that will resolve any prior expenditures or any prior activities. It's for this storm.
Okay, and you mentioned earlier there was a corrective action plan based from this audit. Is there any kind of hindrances from the audit in going forward to addressing the emergency response?
No, thankfully FEMA is, they were working very well with us. We all understand that there were issues that needed to get addressed and that we were working towards that corrective action plan before people started retiring and we had to regroup. But they have been a very good partner to us. And again, their presence before the storm here on Guam is a testament to that. So I'm very happy about the relationship we have with FEMA. It hasn't been tarnished because of that audit.
Okay, so it's fully operational because I think at one point we couldn't pay or we couldn't purchase. That was my understanding. And so we can send out a solicitation and get it. Is that true? Can we get it automatic or immediately implemented?
Their grants that were audited and the fact that they were frozen it was basically made public that the general fund is supporting the operations up there. So we just got a grant. They were awarded a grant, Homeland Security. It was $1 million, but it was all in category 450. And it's like, why isn't there any ability to put it into like personnel, into utilities? Why is it in contractual? What's it doing in there? And apparently, it was sent that way. But until you get the grantor's permission to move money around to operational categories, then it's kind of like, I'm scratching my head now. I have no idea. It's like $1 million. So you get a grant, but you can't really use it.
Okay, and so we have that approval to move it around should we need it?
Pardon me?
Do we have the approval to move the money around?
We're working on it.
Okay.
They're asking FEMA, the other branch of FEMA, the bean counter branch, not the people who are out in the field, to basically, allow for a budget modification so that they can put it in operational categories.
Okay, so the other questions I have regarding the breakdown, so I know this question's come up earlier. What I can only see from the bill is the $1.9 million to the mayors collectively. So the rest of that, if you subtract the roughly $2 million, we have about $23 million left. So, in looking back at Mawar, what sort of improvements were made in regards to hardening of our infrastructure or just improvements in general? I remember we had issues with, of course, the lines being down because of vegetation, of course, the generators not having the fuel or even having operational generators. There was also issues of communications, right? So because the electricity was down, many of these towers, we couldn't communicate. And so what is the status right now regarding the infrastructure?
Thank you, Senator. As I mentioned before, when I was at the public safety meeting earlier this week, there was no mention whatsoever about communication issues, first responder issues, anything of that nature that would lead me to say that we might have issues with communication in the storm because they weren't addressed. Everybody looked like they were pretty comfortable and confident walking into the storm preparation.
Did they give you an estimate of what would be needed, considering the, our experience with malware? Was there like an estimated amount they gave you for the infrastructure cost?
No, because, malware was malware. It was pretty bad. And I think each storm results in different types of damage. So we're just going to have to wait and see. That's why we're here today, just to see whether or not we can get your authorization to be able to have more resources quicker. And then certainly we have no problem coming back with that, as Senator Terlahi asked, for 30-day after a report.
Yeah, the
Not a
reason why I
problem.
ask is just to kind of get a ballpark amount that's needed, if they've already accomplished all of these goals. So I'm just wondering what more is needed, perhaps, for the emergency response. That's the reason why I'm asking that question. The other thing, so the executive order was effective yesterday, right? Is that correct?
Friday, yeah.
Okay. So were the quotes already requested? Were the so according to emergency procurement, there's 3 affirmative quotes, right, that are required, if to the best extent practicable. Has the government already started looking for quotes?
My staff loaded the $250,000 at 6:15 yesterday. I let DPW, Chief of Staff, and a few other people know that the money for the response in the the emergency declaration is available. So I made sure that Mr. Arreola and Ms. Ibanez was aware that they have the funding to be able to get things, and whatever happened today at the Emergency Operations Center to be able to facilitate getting heavy equipment and drawing down on it, $250,000. I don't have a report for you.
Okay, so you don't know at this point whether they were actually looking for quotes?
I'm sure they were, ma'am. I'm sure they were, but I don't know for sure.
Okay. In regards to FEMA, so I know Guam has the distribution center here, for not just for Guam, but for throughout. It's actually one of the distribution centers for the United States. Have you spoken, I guess, directly with them to see what's available? Like, for instance, one of the issues that came up with malware was the access to heavy equipment to clear roads and debris. I know they have quite a few of the heavy equipment there, but there's a little bit of an issue as far as getting it out to the mayors. Or is there an issue with that, should they need it?
I'm not aware that there's heavy equipment. I thought that what was in those warehouses were food stores, generators, tents, things of that nature. I'm not aware of any heavy equipment that is available sitting in a warehouse waiting to be used.
Okay, so I mean that's something to look into to see what's available.
If there is, ma'am, I just don't know.
Okay, and is there enough supply for heavy equipment here in Guam?
Like I said, I saw one individual company basically with a lot of iron that seems to be readily available. So I'm sure that availability of heavy equipment as needed is not going to be a problem.
Okay. The one good thing about this bill is that it provides money up front to the mayors, because the mayors know who in their villages probably would need the most support. So one of the issues that we faced in Mawar where people were stranded in their homes, people with disabilities. So is there a coordinated plan with the mayors to address this?
I'm not aware of a coordinated plan. I would imagine the mayors would be the one that you should ask about that.
Okay, because that's something that came up. Also, what came up in Mawar was, I guess, the identification of those in need, including those with disabilities. So, this $100,000 is critical. We just want to make sure that, it's really helping those most vulnerable in the villages.
Okay.
Okay, I think those are my questions, and thank you.
Thank you.
Response, Senator Perez. Senator Parkinson, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for coming in and answering some questions today. This may be our first major storm threat under a changed federal disaster environment. In this new administration that has promised to cut FEMA funding and doged a lot of their workers. Has FEMA advised the government of Guam that its posture, deployment model, reimbursement timelines, or eligibility standards will be different from what Guam has experienced after prior typhoons?
Not to my knowledge, sir.
Is FEMA pre-positioning personnel or resources before impact, or are we being told to expect a more limited forward presence until after damage is assessed?
I was told that the Region 9 director himself is here.
Has FEMA given any indication whether Guam should expect delays, narrower eligibility interpretations, or a higher burden of local documentation before reimbursement?
Not to my knowledge, sir. Business as usual.
Are we being advised to assume a larger local cost share than in prior disasters, either formally or informally?
I don't believe the rules of engagement have changed, sir.
After Marwar, there were public concerns that Guam Memorial Hospital might not survive another major typhoon without serious risk to operations. What is the present condition of GMH's physical integrity as we head into this storm? Is it prepared to handle a Category 3 or potentially a Category 4 typhoon?
I think members of this body were there at the GMH, so I think you guys should have a good idea of what the physical condition is.
Have the building repairs and other capital improvements needed to harden GMH against typhoon conditions actually been completed, substantially completed, or are they still pending?
I believe they're still in progress. The envelope that they referred to is, I don't believe that's completed yet, but I know there's some work that's still being done.
After the last typhoon, there were reports of rampant water well generator failures and even theft. Is any portion of the disaster response plan or funding intended for GPD support, patrols, or site security for water wells, pump stations, and other critical infrastructure?
I believe coordination with GWA and GPD to ensure that, as necessary, additional security to prevent those types of events from occurring again is in the front of everybody's mind. Nobody wants to, like, fool me once, fool me twice.
Well taken. The bill draws the full $25 million from the general fund. Why is the administration proposing to use the general fund here instead of the rainy day fund?
We have the wherewithal in the general fund. We really do firmly believe that the rainy day fund is the, last resort. When you have money in your checkbook, why would you go out and get a loan? Or why would you take money out of your savings when you have money in your checking account? So this body's continual funding of the rainy day fund, and I don't know whether or not it was noticed, but the amount in the executive budget request was $6.8 million as far as the contribution for FY27. That 6.8 gets us to the statutory requirement for fully funding the rainy day fund. So we have gone from being in a deficit with, junk bond status credit rating to now investment grade, and we're one fiscal year away from fully funding the rainy day fund. So hats off to everybody in here for fiscal integrity and stewardship. So again, when you have this money sitting here, why would you want to go touch that?
And how much is currently in the rainy day fund?
Somewhere in the neighborhood of $87 million, and I think the contribution for 27 brings it up to the $93, $94 million statutory requirement. It's like the average of something, something, something.
Okay. I have no further questions. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Yusmasi, Senator Parkinson. Senator Sabrina Salas-Mantanani, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to follow up on Senator Parkinson's questions regarding the rainy day fund. What do we use it for? And when is the last time we actually used money in the rainy day fund?
You contribute money to the rainy day fund to allow for, let me back up. In prior budgets, you'd have 2% that was set aside of the general fund revenue for deficit reduction. When we eliminated the deficit, then we started putting 2% of the general fund projected revenue into the rainy day fund. So we went from 0 to, basically fully funding within a span of about 7 years. And again, there's statutory requirements for tapping into the rainy day fund and 10 votes. It's not an 8-vote thing, it's a 10-vote thing. So you use it when you don't have anything else and you need something. But as I mentioned to Senator Parkinson, we have general fund money. We've worked very hard to achieve and fully fund the rainy day fund. There's no reason to touch it.
Right, but it was also mentioned earlier that there was 20 million that should be going to GMH and another 5 million that should be going to the Department of Corrections. So if you use this 25 million, does that mean that GMH and DOC won't get the money that they should be? And then if we don't have anything else, then we can tap the rainy day fund?
You could.
I also wanted to follow up if the Department of Administration, BBMR, have been submitting the required reports as per Public Law 3717, because as one of the previous speakers mentioned, the last report that was posted on the legislature's website, the 37th Guam Legislature, was in September of 2024. And according to that report, out of the $50 million that was authorized for appropriation for Typhoon Mawar, there was still the balance of 31 million left.
BBMR submits every mandated report to the legislature. I am not delinquent in any of my reporting.
Okay, so then it could be an error on the legislature's part by not posting these mandated reports?
No, I might not be responsible for the report you're referencing.
There was a question I had regarding the appropriation to the mayors for $100,000. Is that, why is just $100,000? Because you had mentioned how they basically are the first responders. They're the ones people go to when they need assistance. When they have issues with trash, their roof, they call the mayors for help. When they need water, they are basically our go-to. They're our 911, aside from 911. So $100,000, because I plan on introducing an amendment and this amendment is based on conversations with the Mayor's Council of Guam president, that $100,000 it's okay for some of the smaller villages, but when you get into villages like Dededo, Jigo, Mangilao, Barrigada, they have much more land mass, a bigger population that they have to respond to. So is that something that you would support?
100%.
Okay. Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you, Senator Mantanani Salas. Senator Borja.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just had the same question as some of the previous speakers in regards to why not the rainy day fund, rather. And I get the intent or the reason. I mean, it makes sense, right? Why go touch your savings when you should use money available? And of course, again, the same concern, which was, what about all the other appropriations or in the budget bill that the excess, the audited excess was supposed to cover? And I guess we'll probably have to address, and again, just to be clear, the assumption is that we'll continue to, OFB or Mr. Byrne in regards to, should we project a lot more money or more excess in the coming months, just based on some of the late tax collection? Is there any kind of assumption?
I'm sure that the property tax will catch up. So the $21.9 million that you see netted out, that's going to improve. And so that will increase the bottom line. But that's expected, and that's already appropriated, that's already spoken for. So what we're basically telling you is that even with that significant amount of money being taken out, we still have just under $25 million for you to appropriate from. And I really do, Senator, despite the December deadline, I really do believe the people of Guam are very responsible, and they take their tax liabilities seriously. And I don't believe that we're going to see a slew of delinquent tax payments. It's just not the right thing to do, and people do the right thing.
And then one more question. So GDOE, I know, is obviously running the shelters. That usually, one of the things that I know is when they do the shelter duty and then there's some kind of pay, a lot of times there's a delay in the payments because of funding. Is any of these funds going to be used to ensure that GDOE pays the staff that are going to run these shelters?
If you're concerned that you want to see a DOE-specific use, sir, in the funds between lines 6 and 10, I would be very happy to see an amendment that includes DOE personnel for shelter duties and stuff like that. Sure. I mean, it's appropriate.
Okay, yeah, that was my only concern, was ensuring that there was nothing that would limit the governor's ability to ensure that the GDOE staffers that are going to support the shelters get paid.
7 schools are being utilized as shelters, sir. I think that what you're suggesting is in line with everything that's responsible. That's fine.
Thank you. I have no further questions. Thank you, Mr. Byrne, and thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Borja. Chairman Dueñas, you're recognized.
Mr. Chair. Just one question, Lester. So when we were here last session for a number of bills in the Committee of the Whole, Director Byrne made the representation, and my staff has pulled it from the Committee of the Whole, that there is $7.2 million in revenue still available, and said this body should or could reappropriate from the WIC funding that we actually had appropriated prior to cover that when there was a disruption in that program. Can you confirm once again, or do you affirm that his statement is correct?
For what program?
This was the appropriation that we came in. Remember the special appropriation we came into? I believe it was $15 million for the WIC program when that program was suspended.
Oh, you mean food stamps?
Food stamp, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and so he said on the record here under oath that there's $7.2 million there, and he said we're welcome to reappropriate it.
We submitted a fiscal note this week to my good friend, the Vice Speaker, and we actually noted that we only had to fund the first 2 weeks, and then the program restarted. So our fiscal note actually says that that money is available. So he said it, and I said it.
Okay.
I wrote it. He said it.
We might contemplate that during the amendment process. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman Dueñas. Ranking Member Muñoz, you're recognized.
Sizulis Masi, Mr. Chair. I did have several questions, but two retiring speakers from the Oversight Chair on Health and Education has asked that, and I just want to say that the administration, this administration has had managed a couple of emergencies now, and I'm just hoping that we can give the flexibility to activate the resources as quickly as possible. And I know that there's going to be a possible 2 or 3 amendments on this, so I'm going to look at supporting the efforts based on the answers from Adelup. So thank you, Mr. Chair, for giving me the opportunity.
Susan Monsi, Ranking Member Tina Ruz Muñoz Barnes, Senator. Senator Joseph Augustine, recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Simple question to Lester. Is 25 million sufficient because of the contemplated amendments to appropriate money to other parts in the bill? Would 25 million suffice? Even though you said you got 25, but it was also asked of the question of using the rainy day fund, which is what it's for, was for situations like this. And you identified it requires 10 votes. There's 15 of us. There's going to be 10 of us to decide if we want to use a fund source that's available. Because if we're going to get a reimbursement, hopefully it'll fill back the void when we take money out. Is 25 million sufficient?
Sir, it's way too early to tell you whether or not 25 million is too much or insufficient. We're just asking for the resources, and we will be fully accountable for them. We might be back here, and if we're blessed, we didn't have to touch much of this. I will be the first one to tell you thank you, and we have additional funds for future appropriation. I pray that happens, but none of us know what's going to happen. And when you look at that radar and you see that thing not moving and it's coming straight for us, that's why we're here.
Okay. It's only because you brought up the 25, because the 25 does exist. That's why I asked the question, is that sufficient?
I don't.
You don't know if it's sufficient or not?
We don't know if it's sufficient.
And in the past, it was more than you got in preparation. Am I correct or no? No? Did you get money before in preparation?
No.
You waited until after the storm?
We're lessons learned.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, because there were questions asked, and I'm going to wait for the amendments that I'm going to support, I'll just wait until then. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Usmasi, Senator Joseph Augustine. Vice Speaker Ada, you recognized this time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Perhaps the only question I do have of Mr. Carlson, and thank you, sir, for being here this afternoon, and to Director Guerrero for being here as well from OFB. Sir, Director Carlson, on the executive order, the governor has directed that the agencies keep appropriate documentation of all the expenses incurred during this onset of the storm. Would you be able to assure this body that I think more than appropriate, more of the really good accountability of the funds that will be appropriated from this body will be detailed in what they actually did with it, and so that we don't have to go through this issue of unauthorized expenses or things of that nature, sir?
I will tell you, sir, that you will get a full accounting. We do not want to incur the issues that are still unresolved with operations from.
Let's call it what it was, right?
Yeah. We will give you everything that you need, sir. I promise you that.
Thank you, sir, for that. I think that's just the only question I do have is that I want to make absolutely sure that, we have a full accounting of whether it be overtime or expenditures that are made for rentals or purchases of equipment and things of that nature, that a full accounting be kept so that we can show the public that we are, keeping to what is demanded of us, and that's a very responsible use of the people's money.
Whatever, just one more thing, sir. We can code this specifically to now Typhoon Sinlaku. So we can do a fund code, and every transaction will come off of that fund code. Makes life a little bit easier. It separates it from everything else, and then it makes reports to you easier for us to do.
Thank you for that assurance, Director Carlson. Really appreciate it, and I hope that everyone stays safe during this storm. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Tusmasi, Vice Speaker. Senator Titagui, you recognize?
Sijusmasi. Hafaday Lester. They're saving the best for last. Thank you so much for taking the time away from your home and preparing yourself for this storm coming up. You definitely hit it on the nose when you said that, this storm is very scary when it stands still like this. And from what I gather, people are saying it's from the same area that Marwa came from. And speaking of Marwa, the money that was appropriated, you said was $70 million for Marwa. How much? Can you explain again that number, since it was a while ago when you answered that question?
So this body appropriated $50 million for Mawar expenses, specifically FEMA.
Okay, and that money came from where?
General fund.
Okay, not the rainy day fund? It was
Nope.
a general fund? Okay.
Nope. And basically we funded 43 million. We didn't fund the whole 50. And I still have, what I told several senators earlier, I still don't recall seeing any FEMA reimbursements. We've done the paperwork, we've got the projects approved, we've given money from that account to be able to have the work done. But then you still have to have FEMA come back and verify that you did what you were supposed to have done with that money, the way that you were supposed to have done, and only then do they, say okay, and then send us the reimbursement money. So that reimbursement money is supposed to go back into the general fund. I don't believe that there's a penny yet in that reimbursement account for this body then to reappropriate. So it's, as I mentioned earlier to Senator Gumatauta, we're still working on, we just closed out Typhoon Dolphin, and Typhoon Dolphin was probably like when, all of us either had hair or had darker hair. It was quite a while ago.
Yeah. Well, I greatly appreciate the proactive approach to this time around. It makes a lot of sense. We know that if we can avoid major damage ahead of time, we can save money on that. Make sure we put things in place that won't damage things so much. But most especially, the safety of our people. Let you talk about Malesu and the situation down there. I remember it was very close, somebody almost drowning because of that flood. So if we can be proactive, I think it's a great idea, and I appreciate it. But when we talked about, so 43 million of that on the reimbursement from FEMA, and since now that FEMA is here ahead of time, earlier, how quick can we determine what is, refundable or not, if we can ask them before we start spending?
Well, see, that was the whole thing. The whole thing was go through the FEMA exercise, get your project documented, get them to approve of a dollar amount, and you know, of course, you have to address the repairs in a fashion that they tell you to. But all that takes a long time, Senator. You know, you got to wait for everything to settle. Then you got to wait for somebody to come out to your damaged site to do an assessment. And then, you know, like, then you kind of figure out, okay, what do I qualify for? So in my case, for Mawar, I went to SBA at GCC because that was more of a relief effort for the situation that I incurred. So there was several ways that you could address whatever the damage that you incurred for Mawar, and I chose SBA. So I got a 1% loan, you know. I like that.
Yeah, our homeowners association, we didn't get that. We went through SBA too as well. It took us 2 years actually to get the funding or, you know, the loan. However, when was the last time we did use the rainy day fund, and what was it used for?
I don't remember this body, the 37th, the 36th, because we've been building up the rainy day fund from zero. So I don't remember, maybe once, maybe not. I mean, you know, like I said, we're almost at the statutory limit. So this body has done a good job of not touching the rainy day fund because, you know, you've been very good about appropriating revenues that have come in from general fund activities.
I believe that one of the laws that we put forward was to use the rainy day fund for Marwa, about $50,000, but it was only generating at about $40 million at the time. So we didn't use that rainy day fund, but the intention was to use the funds for typhoon recovery. But again, it was falling short. But we received a fiscal note in FY25, for FY25, particularly for Bill 72-38. And in that fiscal note, it claims a balance of $77.6 million, and that was 2025. What is the balance now in the rainy day funds?
I think I said earlier it's somewhere in like 88, 87, and the fiscal 27 executive budget request only asked for $6.8 million because we believe that that's all that's necessary to meet the statutory limit of fully funding the rainy day fund.
Okay. Well, I do know that I was one of those senators, along with a couple of us, who were determined to actually start funding the rainy day fund because it was neglected for so many years. And we've been very diligent about putting money there because if we ever run into a situation like we are today, to use the rainy day fund for this, instead of using the general fund, because you know, we're going to end up using money that was appropriated for other agencies to utilize. And I think this is very appropriate to use a rainy day fund for it. I'm just really surprised that we have not decided to go into that, that fund particularly. On line 7, Lester, on page 1, line 7 of the bill, there is a section there I have a question on. It says, such expenses included, but not limited to. Okay. Would there be a problem striking out, but not limited to? Because that really broadens the ability to use, you know, the funds for pretty much not limited to once you indicate that verbiage there.
I think as long as it's related to line 6, for emergency response and recovery expenses in response to the typhoon. So I think line 6 basically frames what we can use the money for. We can't use it for non-typhoon response and recovery actions. We cannot give it to something outside of that. It basically frames it for us. So if you look at line 6 before you look at line 7, I think maybe you'll feel a little bit more comfortable.
Okay, so by taking this section out, what would happen? It would, and if we spelled out how the money is being appropriated to what areas, it would, might cause some kind of confusion or coming back like FEMA, how we're having trouble with FEMA, determining what we can and cannot spend for. Okay.
You know, it's the list, Senator Tadegui, is pretty encompassing, but you know, we're all human, and what if we forgot something? And what if it was directly related to recovery, and we couldn't spend any of this money on it, and we have to come back, and then we lost what, you know, do we have to call another emergency session simply because, you know, you guys call session, what, every other month, and you might not only have one more session before you go into budget session. So if you give us, if you give, you know, us, you know, the latitude that we will stick with response and recovery for efforts for the typhoon, I think, you know, we'll be fine. And I will bear in mind what it is that you're saying and what your concern is, because I think it's valid. But I won't allow anything to be spent outside of response and recovery of the storm.
Well, people can be very, is it, well, I'm not going to even go there. But lastly, the $20 million that was appropriated to the Guam Memorial Hospital, if we were to go in to use general fund money for that, and because we're now going $25 million into the storm, can we use that money for the rainy day fund for the hospital?
That's a question for the body, not for me, ma'am.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you.
Senate, colleagues, that concludes this round, and so I will take a recess to release the panel. We'll be in recess until we start this next round. Amendments will still be active, so we'll take the recess in case you're following up or finishing up on some stuff, and then we'll go back in. And when we go back in, that will mean that will be the end of the ability to submit amendments. Panel, thank you, Lester, and OFB, Steve Guerrero, thank you for being here. We're in recess.